We begin the second session on learning how to get the intelligence to get the upper hand over the mind. The first session I talked about how the mind is the trigger of thoughts, in the sense of events starting in our consciousness. But that different from thoughts being the product of reflection or deliberation. So we need to differentiate between the two, and we need to sharpen our intelligence to become convinced that everything that comes inside us does not reflect who we are or we want to be. So basically talking about distancing ourselves from our thoughts in various ways. Diffusion from our thoughts was the last point. Don't identify with the thought, but identify the thought. Now we'll focus in this session on, once you have understood, okay, my mind is different from me and I want to focus on doing something. Say I want to grow spiritually, I want to do some service, but the mind still keeps distracting us. So how to deal with the distractions of the mind so that we can persevere in our chosen principled course of action. That's what we'll focus on now. Okay. So we can't change the attitude of the mind, but we can change our attitude towards our mind, towards the mind. That means the is what it is. It is not going to change overnight. If our mind tends to be greedy, it tends to be angry, it tends to be pessimistic, it tends to be hypercritical, that is what it is. The mind tends to be short-sighted, that is what it is. We can't change that overnight. So what we can do is, one aspect of changing the attitude towards the mind is to not identify with it. That just because the mind has come, that means I have to do it. So the mind is inside us, but changing the mind takes time. But changing our attitude towards the mind, that is something which we can do. And in that, changing our attitude towards our mind, there can be two aspects to it. We could go towards attachment to the mind or aversion to the mind. Attachment to the mind means that, again, we identify with the mind. Whatever the mind says, I have to do it. I feel like doing it, so I will do it. So attachment to the mind is very unhealthy, because the mind is fickle, restless, and it can come up with even dangerous desires at that time. But at the same time, we cannot even afford to become averse to the mind. Why not averse? Because we have to live with the mind. And not just live with the mind, we have to work with the mind. In one sense, our mind is the only mind we have. It's not like a replaceable part, in my car this wheel is not working, so I throw away that wheel and I get another wheel. We can't get another mind. The mind which we have is the only mind we have. So if we start becoming very averse to the mind, then we will not be able to function with it. And anyway, we can't maintain that aversion also, because we have to live with it. It is always there. Then again, this aversion can come off in a way where people may sometimes become perpetually angry with themselves. A common problem, a psychological problem in today's world, is called self-loathing. I just dislike myself. I hate myself. I want to do this, but I can't do that. I want to do this, but I can't do that. I want to do this, I can't do that. So I just start detesting myself. I'm such a useless person. I'm such a fallen person. Materialistic people will not use the word fallen, but they just say, they don't have the same conception, but just, I don't like myself. So now that self-loathing or self-hatred or self-detestment, that is also not a healthy attitude. Because in their case, they are also fusing with their mind in a negative way. Sometimes we fuse with the mind and think that whatever the mind says, I will do it. And we may fuse with the mind in a negative way. That means the mind has some bad tendencies within us. But because of that, we identify ourselves with the mind and we start hating ourselves. One is to hate the mind, the other is to hate ourselves. I'm so stupid, I do this, I do that, I do that. Yes, we want to improve ourselves. But at one level, before we can love Krishna, we have to love ourselves. Love ourselves not in the narcissistic or self-centered way. I am so special, I am so great, I am better than everyone else. Not in that sense. But we can say love in the sense of caring for ourselves. When we love someone, then we care for that person. Now, if a mother has a child, he cares. What is this child doing? This child has fallen sick. This is going wrong with this child. This is going wrong with this child. Now, if some child might be there on the street, now we may not care for that child. It's not that we are heartless, but we just don't have the capacity. We don't have the investment of emotions. So if some child on the street falls sick, we don't care. Not that we are uncaring, but just that that's not in our radius of caring at that time. So similarly for us, if we don't have a healthy sense of love for ourselves, an unhealthy love is where we become narcissistic. Narcissistic is obsessively self-centered. Narcissism is a word which comes from a character in Greco-Roman mythology called Narcissus. So this Narcissus, he thought, I look so attractive. So once he came to a river and started looking down. I just wanted to see how good I look. He started peering down more and more and more, trying to bend down to see more and more of his body, how handsome I am. And in that process, he just bent down so much, he toppled over, fell into the river and drowned. So, there can be that way of unhealthy self-obsession, where I just think I am so special and the whole world should recognize how special I am. That is unhealthy. That just becomes arrogance, and that's unhealthy. But love, healthy self-love, in the sense of caring for ourselves. In the sense that we understand, if I am a part of Krishna, then loving Krishna also means loving his parts. And I am also his part. So I love myself not in a self-centered sense, not in an obsessive sense, but in the sense that I care for myself. Now, okay, this is a right action I am doing, this is a wrong action I am doing. Sometimes when people just stop caring for themselves, then they just become unclean, they don't care whether the health is good, their situation is good, their surroundings are good, what kind of actions. I just don't care now. So we will glide down the path of immorality, degradation, if we don't care for ourselves. So healthy self-love or healthy self-care means that we have an attitude that is free from both attachment and aversion. So the attitude, as earlier talked about, evaluation. Okay, this is what I'm doing is good. This is not good. This I'll need to correct. This is something which I can do on further. So to the extent we have this attitude towards our mind, where we recognize that I'll talk about how some part of the mind can be good also a little later, but we have to have aversion is something which we may get into. Sometimes when we start thinking, we often hear the mind is our enemy, and we also start seeing that the mind keeps distracting us into wrong things. We may get averse to it. But that aversion is unhealthy, because we have to function with the mind. So now, in English there are these two words, disinterested and uninterested. Uninterested means one who has no interest, one who doesn't care at all. Disinterested means one who has no vested interests, one who is impartial, one who is objective. Say cricket match is going on, and as umpire, the umpire needs to be disinterested. The umpire shouldn't want this team to win. Otherwise, whatever appeal that team make, the other batsman always out. That will not work. So the umpire cannot be partial. But the bowler bowls and the players go, how's that? And the umpire says, I was not looking at the batsman. What were you doing then? The umpire cannot be uninterested. The umpire has to have interest in what is happening over there. And then the umpire has to evaluate the appeals of the players based on merit. Okay, the players will always appeal. But that doesn't mean every appeal has to be accepted. Nor does it mean that every appeal has to be rejected. The appeal has to be evaluated based on merit. So similarly within us, various emotions will come up. And we need to evaluate them. That prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva cha pandava dveshti sampravrittani na nivrittani kankshati udasina vadasino gunairyo na vichalyate gunavartantityeva yovatishtati nengate. In 14.22 and 23, Krishna talks about how to recognize a person who has transcended the modes. Basically 14.21 is the question, 3 questions. Kairlingai strin gunanetan atito bhavati prabho kimacharah katham chaitam strin gunan ativartate. What are the linga, what are the characteristics of someone who has transcended the modes? What is the behavior of such a person? And how can I transcend the modes? 3 questions he asks. So the Acharya explained what are the characteristics refer to the internal characteristics. The Achara refers to the behavior. So in 22 and 23, Krishna answered the question about the internal characteristics. And he says based on the modes, different kinds of thoughts will come in us. And when these thoughts come, na dveshti sampravrittani na nivrittani kankshati. Don't resent when something unfavorable comes, and don't delight when something favorable comes. Udasina vadasinam. Be situated as if detached. That's why, not entirely detached. If you are entirely detached, you will be unconcerned only. Now, udasina vad, as if detached. That's it. Be disinterested, not uninterested. Udasina vadasinam gunairyo na vichalyate. Understand? Oh, now I'm just feeling bored. I don't feel like doing anything. Sometimes when we are in passion, I feel I have to do everything. I have to do this, do that. Sometimes I go into ignorance. Whatever happens will happen. I don't care. So different attitudes keep coming like that. So at that time, sometimes you feel a lot of passion to do things. Sometimes you don't feel like doing anything. When this happens, just observe. This is simply being stimulated by the modes. Gunairyo na vichalyate. One doesn't get shaken. One sticks to one's purpose. Gunavartantityeva yovatishtati nengate. By understanding this, these are produced by the modes, one stays as if detached. So the healthy attitude towards the mind is of evaluation. Aversion is unhealthy. Of course, attachment is what we discussed earlier. That is also unhealthy. Now, when we look at the mind, I said that we should evaluate it, we have to understand the mind is like a slow learner. It is not our intrinsic enemy. When we say that the mind is an enemy, it is not that the mind has some particular agenda against us. The mind is simply reflecting the actions that we have done. I gave the example in the previous session of alcoholics. In 2 people, they're going from here to here. On the way there is a bar. The sober person does not feel any desire. The alcoholic feels a desire. Why? Because the alcoholic has taken in desires, as indulged in alcohol repeatedly. So the mind is simply reflecting that back. Drink it now. So the mind is circumstantially our enemy. If I have always been habituated to being pessimistic, always thinking about problems, this problem, that problem, then as soon as any situation is presented, the mind will say this problem, that problem. So it's not that the mind is bad, but it is simply reflecting the kind of actions we have done. So it's circumstantially our enemy. So we have to learn how to help it learn. This is not the thing to do, this is the thing to do. So I want to do this, but why doesn't the mind get it? No, the mind's impressions which have been formed, changing them takes time. And how those impressions can be changed, we will have to see that. And we'll have to learn that. So it's like a child with learning disabilities. It's not that the child is bad. Although the child can do bad things. The child can become dangerous, sometimes even destructive. So the alertness has to be there. But those who are caring for that child cannot hate that child. So similarly, if you understand, this mind is going to be a slow learner. And then I have to find out how can I get the mind to understand things. So each of us has to take responsibility for helping our mind to learn. So I'll talk about what this means and how we can take responsibility. But the point is, the attitude towards the mind, if it is too positive or too negative, or everything the mind says is good or everything that the mind says is bad, then both those attitudes will prevent us from functioning effectively. We'll discuss about, this is going to be the heart of the class, these 4 points. Now I said that we should learn how to help the mind to learn. So how do we help? In 4 ways. So the mind is in between. The soul is here, the body is here. So we can help the mind externally and we can help the mind internally. So externally, we can help it through having conducive situation and conducive association. And internally, we can help the mind by cultivating a positive intention and by channeling the positive inclinations. So situation and association externally, intention and inclination internally. Let's look at what we mean by this. Situation means that the mind, when it proposes something or something is easily available, then if the temptation comes, we'll just do it. So self-control is best maintained by avoiding situations that require self-control. What that means is that suppose a person is alcoholic and that person wants to give up alcohol. Now if their house is close to a bar, then no matter how much determined they are, sometimes the weak moment will come up and then they will go and drink. So, in many times, a simple external change is enough to help us on the right path. External change alone is not enough, is not complete, or is not all that we need to do. But the mind has different kinds of lower desires. Some lower desires are very deep rooted. And then we'll have to fight them, we'll have to take time to purify them. But some lower desires are also circumstantial. Like say, if I have a tendency to eat unhealthy food, and if I decide that no, I'm not going to overeat, and if I keep some fatty food close to me, then periodically we get what is called as snack attack. You're attacked by the desire to have a snack. Now when the desire comes, at that time, we may be hungry also. If there's some healthy food is available, some fruit is there, some salad is there, that is available, we'll take it. But if the fatty food is there, we'll take that. So if we keep the fatty food ready, the unhealthy food readily available, that's what we'll take and that's what we'll eat. So in this case, it's not that sometimes the food craving becomes so much that sometimes people travel from one part of the country to another part of the country just to eat a particular food. That's like a very deep-rooted desire. But most of our desires for food are just circumstantial. If I say this food is nice, I have it, I'll take it. But if it is not there, okay, it doesn't matter. So many times, just by avoiding external situations which are tempting or provocative, we can minimize the minds going off in wrong tracks. Now, it is not always possible to do this, and that's why other strategies are also required. But when it is possible, it is a simple way in which we can minimize the mind's tendency to go off on the wrong tracks. So psychologists call this phenomena propinquity. Propinquity means it's the effect of distance and time on human behavior. A simple example. Suppose say I'm going here from office to home, and along the way there is a hotel. And in that hotel, there is some food which I like very much. I'm going along and I see that. I had no plan to eat that, but I go along, hey, maybe I can go and have it. Just drive in, take that food and eat it. But I'm passing along the same road, and I see there's a long queue over there. And I'll have to wait for the queue for half an hour, and then for them to cook it will take half an hour. And then 1 hour, the mind will say, maybe later. So, here what we can do is, if we create some distance between us, or if there's some obstacle between us and the temptation, the mind chooses frequently the path of least resistance. So if temptation is easily available, the mind will go into temptation. But if temptation is difficult to get, the mind will say later. So basically, by creating situations where the mind's weaknesses cannot be easily indulged in, we can decrease the tendency of the mind to go off on the wrong track. Krishna recommends this in 2.58 in the Bhagavad Gita when he says, Yada samharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvishaha indriyan indriyarthebhyas tasya pragya pratisthita. That just as the tortoise withdraws its limbs, similarly withdraw its senses from the sense objects. So situations, if we can create where distractions are not easily available, then what happens by that is that the circumstantial or casual desires that come within the mind, we won't indulge in them because it's not so easily available. So if we are working on the net and we are reading something on a computer and suddenly the desire comes, oh, let me look at the news, let me look at this, let me look at that. And suppose I decide for the next 1 hour I have to do some work, I'll just cut off access to the net. Then I can focus on what I am doing. So we all can minimize, not eliminate, but significantly decrease the trouble of the mind by finding out how we can decrease our exposure to provoking situations. So not doing this can aggravate problems. Duryodhana always had envy towards the Kauravas. But when they came to the Rajasuya Yajna, probably the worst service he could have got was the service of receiving gifts. Because he was directly saying, hey, this. So much they are getting. Now, okay, somehow he got that service. He couldn't say no. But after that, all the Kauravas left. Bhishma left, others left. He said, I want to stay and I want to see the Maya Sabha of Yudhishthira. Now, why did he have to see that? He already had envy. And by seeing the phenomenal prosperity of Yudhishthira, his envy increased further. So that's when the whole incident happened. He slipped and fell and he felt that he was insulted. So all the provocation happened because he was envious and still he exposed himself to stimuli where his envy got aggravated. So by avoiding provoking situations, we can deal with the mind's casual or circumstantial desires. Then there is association. We need friends who understand our mind and help us understand our mind. What does it mean? Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about like-minded association. In spiritual association, there are many different kinds of devotees. So, even among devotees, all devotees are intending to serve Krishna, but each devotee has their own particular kind of mind, particular kind of senses, particular kind of rationality or sentimentality or whatever. So we need to find some like-minded association. Suppose we are very analytical and philosophical or rational. We get a lot of questions. And somebody else does not have that rational side at all. And then we have some question which is very logical and which is very rational. And then we ask some person, and he says, why do you have so many questions? Just chant Hare Krishna. He says, what do you mean, why do you have questions? I have questions. If I have questions, I need answers. But somebody who does not have rational tendency, if I tell him, this question is like this question is like this. Why are you giving me doubts, Don't create doubts in my heart. I don't need all this. So basically, if I am having a rational analytical attitude, then I have to find out devotees who are also similarly rational analytical. And they will understand me. Oh, that's why you have this question. Okay, I can understand it. So then they will understand us. That means they will understand how our mind is functioning. Why we think like this. And then, just because they understand how we think, they will also help us to deal with it. So if we are logical, we need logical answers. But ultimately, logic is not God. So there are times when we need to use logic in Krishna's service. And there are times when we need to go beyond logic for Krishna's service. So I have a whole class on this. What I say is that our logic should be our minister, not our master. That means we use logic. Like a minister, we take advice. Okay, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. But the king may sometimes decide that, even if the minister is saying like this is what I'm going to do. The minister is not my master. So sometimes in the process of Krishna Bhakti, there may be some things which may not make logical sense, at least immediately. So then we still persevere in Krishna Bhakti. So when we have even one or two associates like that, with whom associations, some association like that, where it's like-minded. It's significant that Bhaktivinoda Thakur also uses the word like-minded. He does not use the word like-souled or like-hearted. He could use that. The soul, all souls are ultimately pure. All souls are servants of Krishna. But the soul's tendencies, soul's consciousness is filtered through the mind right now. And that's why we need to have like-minded association. So, if somebody is very different from us, we may have some relationship, but there cannot be a very deep, as they say, meeting of minds or meeting of hearts. So that's why, even if we have one friend like that who understands us, then that's a big advantage. So, as I said earlier, normally we look at everyone through our mind. Now, if somebody starts speaking very nicely to us, we start thinking, what does this person want now? Why are they speaking so sweetly to me? Probably they must be wanting me to do something. So, our mind starts evaluating like that. And if somebody starts criticizing us, our mind says, this must be envious of me, I am so successful, this person is simply envious. So, we evaluate people through our mind. But if somebody we are close to, we trust them, then rather than seeing them through our mind, the mind is here, they are here. They are here, the mind is here. Okay, my mind is saying like this, this person is saying like this. Let me evaluate. Who is right? Let me use my good intelligence. So, if you see, Caitanya, the Mahabharata says, Caitanya was gentle, kind and wise. Gentle is in her actions. Gentle is in her words, kind is in her actions. And wise is in the intelligence. But by the bad association of Manthara, she became cruel, harsh and foolish. Her whole character at that particular time became perverted. Now, when this happened, after that, she just, Manthara spoke something. There's a whole conspiracy to deprive your son of the kingdom. And by extension, it's meant to deprive you of the privileged position in the royal family. And then after that, she just accepted that uncritically. And then whoever spoke anything, she just saw through that filter. When Dasharath told her, Dasharath was devastated. He told her, if you want Bharat to be the king, yes, make him the king. But don't send Ram to the forest. What wrong has he done? How has he offended you? So now this was quite a reasonable request from Dasharath's part. But Caitanya said no. He said, if Ram is there, he will overthrow Bharat. He says, you have promised me two things. You have to give me two things. It is only because you are partial to Ram. That's why, after giving your promise to me, you are not keeping the promise. So somehow, once she accepted Manthara's narrative of things, everything that happened, everyone's actions, she started interpreting through that narrative. How? Why is Dasharath not wanting Ram to go to the forest? Because Dasharath is partial to Ram. So then that is a very unfortunate condition to be in, where we completely accept the mind's version of things. And then she was actually thinking that I am being selfless. I am doing all this for Bharat. I am protecting Bharat's right to the kingdom. It is only when Bharat came back, and Bharat was shocked. What have you done? Bharat said, you are not my mother. He says, you are the goddess of destruction incarnated into our family to destroy our dynasty. What? At that time, she had created an imaginary Bharat in her mind, and this real Bharat came, and just that imaginary Bharat was a balloon that burst. And then she said, what have I done? So, but by that time it was too late. So like that, so at that point what happened was, she did not have anyone with whom she could evaluate what Manthara was saying. So the Mahabharata is of course historical, but it can also have symbolic meanings to it. So Ayodhya represents our heart. Caitanya is the soul, Manthara is the mind. So when Caitanya uncritically accepted whatever mantra is saying, that's like the soul accepting whatever the mind is saying. And the result of that was Ram was exiled. So when we uncritically accept everything that the mind says, then we exile the Lord from our heart. We go away from bhakti. We go away from bhakti. So what we need to do is, so if Caitanya could at least have heard Vashishta. No, Vashishta, why would he have any part of a confer? He was just a priest. He was not going to gain anything whether Ram became the king or Bharat became the king. So Vashishta had no vested interest over there. But still, she didn't even hear Vashishta. No one she heard. So we need someone, when the mind is giving us one version of things, we need someone who we can trust enough, even if they give us a different version of things. Otherwise, we'll be swept away by the mind. So association basically helps us to evaluate what the mind is saying. And that's how we can learn. Okay, this is what the mind is saying and I should not be doing like this. So in the first session, I primarily talked about introspection. It's our own efforts to deal with the mind, which is also important. But here we are talking about aids which we can have. So situation and association can be two aids at an external level. Now let's look at the internal level. We can have intention. Intention means what is it that we want to do? So we have been saved from our own past conditionings. We have been saved from the world of illusion. But we have not just been saved from something. We have been saved for something. We have been saved, we have been protected so that we can serve Krishna constructively. So if we don't focus on what we are saved for, we relapse into what we were saved from. That means the past conditionings, they are not entirely gone away. They are there. But when we have a positive purpose we are working for, then those conditionings don't get an opportunity to act so much. But if I don't have any positive intention, I don't have any positive purpose, or I neglect that positive purpose, then for the mind, its past conditionings are the easiest course of action, like the path of least resistance. So we'll gravitate towards that. Say for example, if I sit down and I have next 1 hour free, I don't know what to do. Maybe I can read some Shastra, maybe I can chant some rounds, or I think yesterday night I slept a little less. I can go to sleep. So if we sit down and think what I should do, and we don't have any plan or purpose, the mind will choose the path of least resistance. Now sometimes I may go on the net and I have some particular thing to read. I read that. But if I go on the net just to, let me find something interesting to read. I go on this website and I go on that website and go on that website. So we can just get lost. There's a boy in Thailand, he spent 70 hours continuously surfing the net. And in that, he was so caught in it that he forgot to eat, he forgot to drink, and finally had a stroke. And his friend was there, just in the next room, he heard when he crashed. So he was taken to the hospital and he was saved. So the surfing can become such an intoxicating thing that even the basic body's need of food and water can be forgotten. So if we, similarly, if we don't have a particular purpose, and the mind has unlimited browser windows it can open, and the tak, we can just get endlessly caught in it. So we have to have a positive purpose. We have some service to Krishna, we have some practical responsibilities in life. So generally speaking, if we have an intention which we hold strongly with us, if I decide, in the next 1 year, I'm going to complete reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Or maybe next 1 year, I'm going to read 2 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. So then, I may not be able to read every day. But if that intention is there, then as soon as I get some time, I won't think what I should do. Yeah, I have to do this. Let me do this immediately. So as soon as we have time, if we have a strong intention to do something, we will find time to do it. And if we don't have a strong intention, then the mind will find ways to fill whatever time we have. And the mind will find ways to fill time which we don't even have. That means what? That we don't even have means, say, okay, I had this class, and then after this class. In 15 minutes, I have some time. So I think, maybe 15 minutes, just let me surf something on the net. So what happens is, there are some blanks in our schedule. Then, if we leave some blanks, the mind will fill the blank. But the mind will not just fill the blank. After filling the blank, then it will override the sentence. What does that mean? Okay, I had this class, there's a break, and after that I had to go for this class. But in the break, I start watching something, surfing something, and then it's time for class. Forget it. I'll just do whatever I'm doing. So, the mind, if we give it time, it can disrupt our schedule also. So, if we have a strong intention to do something, then whenever we have time, we will gravitate towards that. Yes, this is what I want to do. And in that way, we will stay constructively engaged. Oh, of course, our ultimate intention is that we want to attain Krishna. But sometimes that can appear so far away. Okay, what do I do to attain Krishna? So, we have to have some practical actions. So, okay, I'm studying Bhakti Shastri now. So, I have to study this book. I have to hear this class. I have to write these answers. So, we need to translate that ultimate intention into some practical intentions. What can I do right now? See, the big intentions are like, if I tell somebody I'm hungry, and they bring a big watermelon, eat it now. Okay, how do I eat it, I don't have any knife, I can't cut it. It will be very difficult for me to eat it. So if it's cut into small pieces, then I can eat small pieces. So like that, okay, my intention is to develop love for Krishna. That's like such a big watermelon. What do I do? Yes, I want to develop love for Krishna. But what do I do practically? Okay, practically, do this service. Read this book. Take up this responsibility. So we need to have some practical intentions within our bhakti. And then that will protect us from the mind's tendency to default towards unhealthy directions. Now, along with intention, there is inclination. Now, inclination, what does it mean? Let's start with the physical aspect. If the floor has an inclination like this, that means if water falls on the floor, it will automatically flow in this direction. Like that, whenever some thoughts come in our consciousness flows in a particular direction. That is the inclination of our consciousness. Now, the inclinations within the mind can be of two categories. You can call this impulses and instincts. Impulses are usually, in both impulse and instinct, there is a common aspect that there is no conscious exercise of the intelligence. We just do it. So impulse, I see some food, immediately my hand goes there and I eat it. So, if I have an impulse, somebody does something wrong, I just shout at them. That's impulse. So generally the word impulse is used for actions which are done without intelligence, but actions which are done wrong. That's why we act thoughtlessly and we do wrong actions. On the other hand, instincts also don't involve conscious use of the intelligence, but we just get it. Some people may have just some very good instinct for music. They just come to a temple, pick up the kartal, 1, 2, 3, they get it. They start playing it. Sometimes some small children, they have some musical instinct. Just effortlessly learn it and just get it right. So all of us now have certain instincts. Some people, they start singing and they sing so nicely. They can practice to improve it, but even without practice, they get it basically right. So our instincts, we could say, are the positive things we have carried over from our previous life. Somebody had practiced music. Somebody had done some art. Some people are just good at maths. They just get it right. So instincts are, we could say, something which we do without conscious thought, without conscious effort, but we get it right. In fact, the 4 Varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, these are basically, they have Brahmanas, means they have a Brahmanical instinct. So they have a book, they will want to read it. They're interested in reading scripture, reading, analyzing, studying. When Arjuna won the hand of Draupadi in the Swayamvar, at that time, the Pandavas were disguised as Brahmanas. And Arjuna won the hand of Draupadi, and then he went away. Now Drupada, as a responsible father, was naturally concerned. Who has won my daughter? Who is she married to? So he sent his son, Drishtadyumna, to observe where do they go, where do they stay, and then he invited them for a feast at his place. There's a big hall in which they had a feast, and the table was on one side where they were going to take the food. On the other side there was another table, with the table where there are different items kept. So on one side some scriptures were kept, on some other side next to it some weapons were kept. Okay, thank you. That's okay. So some other place there were some thank you. That's okay. So then some plows and some farming equipment was kept in third place. And the fourth, some artisans' tools, some equipment was kept. So this is basically things which will interest a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. So when the Pandavas came, they sat and they were waiting for the food to be served. They looked around the room, they saw this table. And all of them together walked straight to the weapons. And they picked up the weapons. Hey, this arrow, this bow is like this sword is like this. And they became deeply absorbed in discussion. And Drishtadyumna and Drupada were looking at each other, they smiled. They are not Brahmanas, they are Kshatriyas. So, in this case, they just naturally got attracted to weapons. So that's the instinct. Instinct means that's something which we get naturally attracted to. Now, getting attracted to weapons is not a bad thing. Weapons are what the Kshatriyas are going to use for fighting. So we all have certain instincts. And the instincts are where our consciousness will flow naturally. Now, how do we know what our instincts are? One way is to note consciously what we notice subconsciously. To note consciously what we notice subconsciously. Say, for example, if I come into a room, wherever I see, if there is a big picture, my eyes will go first to the caption of the picture. And then I will proofread that caption. Is the spelling right or wrong? Every notice I will see, this spelling is not right, this spelling is not right, this spelling is right. So, now it's not that I have to consciously look for that. Automatically it goes in that direction. Some people, they come into a house and as soon as they see the house, if this sofa could be kept here, if this bed could be kept here, this would look so much better. Some people, they come into a kirtan and they don't hear the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. They hear this mridanga, this is not being playing right, This tal, this is off tal, this is off tal. So what happens? We all have certain things which we notice subconsciously. But if we note that, others don't notice this, but I notice it so quickly. Then that is where we understand our instincts are. This instincts is, we could say, like a programmed intelligence. Intelligence is sometimes something that we get by conscious deliberation. But some things, we just get it effortlessly. So if we have certain instincts for certain things. Now some people, you give them food. Hey, it's delicious. Some other people, you give them food and they not only tell it is delicious, this much contain this and this. How did you know that? They just have got that knack. So, within that taste of what we call as simply one label, delicious. But within that delicious, they can taste this item is there, this item is there, this item is there. That's just the knack that is there. So we all have certain instincts. And when we talk about, how did we go back? Okay. So, why are we talking about impulses and instincts? When we talk about controlling the mind, it is the impulses that need to be controlled. The instincts are not what is to be controlled. The instincts need to be channeled. Channel the instincts in devotion. So now the Pandavas are pure devotees, but still they were not spontaneously attracted to Shastra. They were attracted to Shastra. They were not attracted to scripture, they were attracted to weapons. That does not mean that they did not like scripture. They would hear scripture from Brahmanas, they would themselves also study. But their natural attraction was towards weapons. Because that was the way they were inclined. That was their basic inclination based on their varna. So basically, we need to channel our instincts in devotion. Now, if I have an instinct for language, then I can use that. Maybe I can run the temple newsletter. I can do some proofreading. I can do some editing service. If I have an instinct for music, then I can be a part of the kirtan team. If I have an instinct for cooking, now for everybody has an instinct for tasting. But some people have an instinct also for testing. Okay, this tastes good. Some people just say this tastes good, this tastes bad. But some people will okay, this tastes good, but if you add this will become better. That's a knack. So if we have that, then we can use that in serving Krishna by cooking. So we can't, like earlier I said, we can't be averse to the mind. And we can't reject everything that the mind says. The mind's instincts are often usable in Krishna's service. And if we start rejecting everything that the mind says, and the mind will rebel against us very violently. And we will feel choked. So if say this is the circle of what the mind likes, then in this circle, there are some things which are anti-devotional. The mind says, okay, I want to do this, I want to be lusty, I want to be greedy, I want to be violent, whatever. But there are anti-devotional things. Those are some things which we definitely have to say no to. But within the circle of the mind, there are some things which are circle of what the mind likes. There are some things which are anti-devotional. Some things which will be just non-devotional. And some things which will be pro-devotional. Non-devotional means somebody just has some inclination for, okay, I like to know about current affairs. I'm interested in history. I'm interested in geography. Okay, that's an interest. That's not against bhakti. It may not be directly usable for bhakti, it may be. But some people, as I said, music is something which you can use in bhakti. So, if we find out, okay, this is the circle of the mind's likes, and this is the circle of bhakti. It's not that the two are completely non-intersecting. There is an intersection somewhere. And if we situate ourselves in that intersection, and take up some service in that intersection, then the power of the mind will work for our devotion instead of against our devotion. Normally, when the mind's impulses come up, then because of the impulses of the mind, the impulses make the power of the mind work against our devotion. But if we understand the instincts and channel them, then because that is something which we can naturally do. Somebody likes music, and then we get an opportunity to learn kirtan, learn various musical instruments, they just love it. So then the power of the mind, that means the natural attraction of the mind towards certain things, that can be channeled, that can help us in our devotion instead of opposing us. So in this way, by learning to understand the inclinations of the mind, and the impulses are the unhealthy inclination, which we have to restrain. But the instincts are the healthy inclinations in the mind, which we can use. So, broadly speaking, we could see that, again, as I said earlier, terms and concepts are something which have to be carefully understood. But impulses can be roughly referred to by the Sanskrit word vasanas. Lust, anger, greed, these are vasanas. They have to be controlled. But the instincts, we could say, is the vritti. That's the tendency I have. That's the inclination I have. Somebody has a Kshatriya vritti, somebody has a Brahmana vritti, somebody has a musical inclination, somebody has a linguistic inclination. That's instinct. So we are meant to curb our vasanas and we are meant to channel our vrittis. When we do it in this way, then the mind starts feeling that, this bhakti, it doesn't choke me completely. Otherwise, like everything I say, no, 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 it just becomes unbearable. There is a atheist gag. Gag means like a joke against Christianity. In the Bible, it is said that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. That is the first verse in the Genesis of the Bible. So the atheists say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was no. No, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. Sometimes you just start feeling there's so many no's, what do I do? But it's not like that. There are many things which we can do positively in bhakti. And when we understand which are the mind's instincts and how they can be channeled in bhakti, then we can focus on the yes part of devotion. There is a no which also has to be said. But we can focus on the yes part. And thus bhakti becomes more constructive for us. It doesn't lead to forceful opposition from the mind, but rather the mind feels, I can also do something which I like in my devotion. And then the mind becomes our partner. In the next session, I'll talk about how the mind can be converted. And I said the mind becomes a partner. So how does the mind become converted? What all parts become converted? What may not become converted? And how we can progress in our bhakti towards this conversion of the mind, that I'll discuss in the next session. I'll summarize what I spoke. Today I talked about the concentration. So in the first session I talked about how... What happened? Okay, no problem. Yeah. So why to do was the conviction which we discussed in the previous session. How to do, that's the concentration, focusing, keeping the mind fixed. So I talked about we can't change the mind's attitude right away, but we can change our attitude towards the mind. That means we don't uncritically accept whatever the mind says. We don't fuse with the mind. But at the same time, we don't become averse to the mind also. We talked about how we need to love Krishna, we need to love ourselves. So not love in a narcissistic or unhealthy sense, but love in the sense that we care for ourselves. We care whether I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And we care because we are also parts of Krishna. And loving the whole also means loving the parts. And there are many parts of Krishna, but the part of Krishna that we are most responsible for is we ourselves. We are responsible for others, but we can't have that much control over others. So, loving ourselves in a healthy sense means we don't become averse to the mind, or we don't become averse to ourselves just because the mind has made us do many bad things. We need to be evaluating. Yes, the mind, we may sometimes under the mind spell do good things, sometimes bad things. So evaluate, like an umpire. Umpire cannot be uninterested, uncaring in what is happening in the sports match. But the umpire cannot be partial also. It has to be disinterested, not uninterested. And like that, in our mind, many emotions will come up, many desires will come up. We evaluate them just like the umpire evaluates the appeal of the players. Then, when the mind works as our enemy, that also we have to see in context. The mind is not intrinsically our enemy. Circumstantially, it's our enemy. Whatever we have done in the past, it keeps proposing again. And so we see, when we want the mind to do something good, but it doesn't do it, rather than getting angry with it, we see that it is simply a slow learner. The past impressions are deep-rooted, and new impressions are not so easily formable. So it's just like a child with learning deficiencies. The teachers or caretakers have to find out how to make the child learn, how to help the child to learn. So like that, we can take the responsibility to find out how I can help. I need to learn how to help my child to learn, if my child has learning deficiencies. Similarly, I need to learn how to help my mind to learn. And in that, we talk about external and internal. External is situation and association. Internal is intention and inclination. Situation means that the mind follows the path of least resistance. So if some indulgence is very easily available, the mind will, even when the casual desire comes, it will indulge in it. But if it is not easily available, the mind will say, too much effort. So the casual or circumstantial desire that come up, we'll be able to resist them. So the self-control is best maintained by avoiding situations that require self-control. Talk about propinquity. If you go to a hotel, it's very crowded, okay, I'll eat later. It's empty, okay, I'll go and eat now. So then I talked about association. Association means that we have to not just have devotee association, but we have to, within devotee association, we find out some friends who are like-minded. That means who understand our mind and who help us to understand our mind. Means if our mind comes up with certain doubts, certain desires, certain ideas, they don't judge and reject us for this. They understand, okay, why we are thinking like this. But at the same time, the mind may sometimes just go get outrageous ideas. And they also tell us, this your mind is tricking you. This is a reasonable idea, but this is not reasonable. So if we fuse with the mind, then we evaluate everyone through the mind. And then we just buy into the mind's narrative, like Caitanya bought into Manthara's narrative. So we need at least someone in our life who we trust enough so that we evaluate the mind through them. And having that kind of association is both vital as well as a great blessing. And then intention means that we have to have some positive purpose. If we don't have focus on the positive purpose of serving Krishna, then the mind's tendencies, conditions will come back and they will drag us down again. So if we leave any blanks, the mind will fill the blank. And then it will override the sentence also. So if we think, what should I do now? The mind will tell us what to do. But if we have some positive purpose, then as soon as we get time, we'll focus on that positive purpose. So along with the ultimate goal of loving Krishna, which is like eating a big watermelon, we need to set some intermediate goals, which are tangible and achievable, which is like cutting the watermelon, which we can eat. So that way, we'll have something positive to do in our life. And last, I talked about the inclinations. Our mind is inclined in particular ways. So some part of its inclination, impulses are bad, where they thoughtlessly make us do wrong things. But the impulses are good because they effortlessly, we just get it. So musical instinct or linguistic instinct or interior decoration instinct. These instincts are there. Some people just have that. So we talked about the Pandavas gravitating towards weapons. So we can understand our instincts by noting consciously what we notice subconsciously. And we use this, we channel the instincts in devotion. Then, that means within whatever the mind likes, there's something non-devotional or anti-devotional rather, which is the impulses which you have to give up. And the pro-devotional, we can use it in Krishna's service. And the mind will not feel suppressed, but because the mind likes to do it, and now we are doing it for Krishna, and the mind's power will become our partner in our devotion. And thus the mind will move towards becoming converted into our friend. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So. Applause can be ambiguous. The applause can be an appreciation or the applause can be a conclusion. So which one is it? Yeah, it's been a long session. So do we want to have question answers? Yeah, some. There's one devotee who told me that, he says, hearing your classes is like doing a continuous intellectual workout. So sometimes we get tired. So, yeah, we can have a few questions. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for an intellectual ride. It's actually, I think what you said summarizes. It's so difficult to focus on each of your sentences that you say. It's actually a good exercise for our intellect. So I have one question on what you mentioned in the previous session and in this session. Sometimes our mind, it presents very persistent desires. And even if we push them away now, they'll come back again with the same force. And you mentioned we can distance ourselves from those desires by putting some restrictions. So like, for example, I had the tendency to go and browse internet. So I can go switch off the Wi-Fi. But when we get those desires, we actually go and switch on the internet again, and then, and it keeps happening again and again. So how do we?
See, so sometimes some desires may be very strong, and how do we deal with them? We also have to evaluate desires. Are those desires harmful? See, suppose, say, I just get a desire to itch, to scratch. Now sometimes, if the skin is healthy, I just get an urge to scratch, I scratch and it's over. But if I already have a rash over there, and then I scratch, the rash worsens, and then I get again a scratch, again a desire to scratch, again a desire to scratch. And then the rash becomes a big wound. So some desires are just casual. Just scratch, that's it. I want to eat this today. Well, you eat it, it's over, and go on. We don't have to make I want to control this desire. Why can't I control this desire? If it is food that can be offered to Krishna, if it is prasadam, there's no need to make a big issue out of it. So scratching on healthy skin is not harmful. But scratching on diseased skin, that is harmful. So basically, if our overall consciousness is healthy, then within that, an occasional desire to do something which is not anti-devotional, that is just a part of normal life. We don't have to get too caught in that. Anti-devotional desires means desires which involve breaking of the regulative principles. There would be anti-devotional desires, broadly speaking. But suppose a desire falls, so if a desire is not in that category, then sometimes trying to restrict that desire may require so much effort that consumes our consciousness. And okay, I will not eat this food. Okay, fine, but just by not eating this food, I'm not going closer to Krishna. Of course, it's not by eating that food also I'm not going to go closer to Krishna. But the point is that is it worth so much of the investment of my, no, I'll not do this, I'll do it. No, I won't do it, I'll do it, I won't do it. It doesn't matter. It's like, say, Ekadashi, we try to fast. I'm going to fast Nirjal. I'm going to chant 64 rounds, I say. I sit down, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm chanting Hare Krishna, but the mind is saying, Prasad, 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 Prasad. So, then, actually, I may chant many rounds, but I'm not hearing anything at all, because the mind is Prasad, Prasad. Well, just take some food and then again chant Hare Krishna. It's good if we can fast, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is to focus on Krishna. So, sometimes we, in saying no to some desire, that might just consume the consciousness so much that we get distracted from Krishna without getting much by saying no to that desire. So that's one aspect. But if the desires are not that harmless, then we may have to find out how best to deal with them. So, we all have to, there is of course this illusion which is created by the mind that when we say no to a particular desire, it seems to become stronger. It seems to come back with greater force. However, that is not always the reality. One of the ways, standard ways in which animals are trained, say wild animals like lions and tigers are domesticated, are trained, is that they are starved. They're kept in a cage, and unless the lion jumps through that holes or whatever the trainer wants them to do, the lion doesn't do it, then that lion is starved. When this lion is starved, it will growl more and more and more. Growl, roar, ferociously. If the trainer is timid, hey, this anger, the lion has become so angry, better let me give some food. But the trainer is experienced, the trainer understands that no matter how loudly the lion is roaring, actually the lion is becoming weaker and weaker. And eventually, its roar will become a whimper. And it will fall silent. So similarly, sometimes when we say no to a particular desire, the mind may scream more and more and more. And if you get scared, my God, this is such a forceful desire that is coming in. How can I say no to it? Better let me give in. No. Although the mind may be screaming louder, but actually it is becoming weaker. Because it is indulgence that feeds that desire. And when indulgence is not there, then the desire is not getting its food. So it is becoming weaker. So abstinence, persistence in abstinence is one way to silence the mind, even if it is screaming a bit. But we have to see what works for us. Now our focus should not be simply renunciation. Our focus has to be devotion. That I want to focus on Krishna. Sometimes we get so caught in fighting the battle against temptation that we forget to fight the war for devotion. The battle against temptation is, no, I will not do this. I'm going to give this up. Yes, that is important. But more important is focusing on Krishna, connecting with Krishna, moving towards Krishna. So, even if whatever happens with respect to this, still I will keep practicing bhakti. And it is by the practice of bhakti that those lower desires will eventually go away. So, rather than worrying too much about whether we are able to control a particular desire or not, we try our best, but even if it doesn't work, just focus primarily on connecting with Krishna. Because it is that connection with Krishna, that consistent practice of bhakti, that is what is going to eventually purify us and strengthen us enough to say no to that desire. Answer your question? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay. Where is the mic? Yeah. We had 2 mics, I think. Where's the other one? Okay, wherever. Yes, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. So, can we understand that what I train today, like myself in particular service, I may not have the instinct for it, but at some point that will become like an instinct because it's a matter of training. Just like in childhood, we may not like a particular subject, but repeatedly because we are taught that, then when I grow up, I may instinctively like to do that, or I may know how to do it because I've been trained in that.
Yeah, so if we do something repeatedly, will we develop the instinct for that? Yes, definitely. Doing something repeatedly helps us to do it better. And in that sense, we can practice and persevere in what we are doing, and we'll improve. At the same time, there are some things in which we just are genetically blessed with instincts. Genetics is basically, from the bodily perspective, from the philosophical perspective, you can say karma. We're karmically blessed. So some people say by practicing music, they can learn some kirtans, they can learn singing. Some people, they just effortlessly know it right. And everybody, even those who get it right effortlessly, by practicing they can improve it. But it may not be that somebody who doesn't have instinct at all will become a genius in that field. So some people who just don't know any music, some people just, they're not very good at, I say, keeping things in an aesthetic way. They observe, they learn, and yeah, this looks better, this looks better. They'll also do a decent job. But they may never be as good as somebody who just has that instinct from birth or is innate there. So we don't need to think of inability to develop excellence in some particular field by practice as a deficiency. Because we'll definitely improve by practice, but we may not become excellent. Because excellence is result of both, you could say, talent and temperament, talent and practice, talent and you could say commitment. So by commitment, there can be improvement from based on whatever little we have. But commitment is not a substitute for talent. So if commitment alone were what would determine, then anybody who, there are, like in India, there are thousands of people who practice cricket. The thousands of people don't become Sachin Tendulkar. Isn't it? Some people just have the talent. So we shouldn't have unrealistic expectations of improvement by commitment. If we have a particular service, we commit ourselves and try to improve it. But at the same time, we also observe ourselves in devotion and see what service I am naturally good at. And over a period of time, gradually, we can gravitate toward that service. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Where is the mic here? Okay, there's only one. Okay. The mic is there behind, yeah. So now, yes, one mic can be with Mataji's, one can be there.
So
we have 3 mics. That's interesting. Okay. Okay. Yes,
So the question I had was, so based on the inclination, sometimes, there are certain aspects of devotional service that we're inclined towards. There are sometimes, we don't have any taste for chanting, and we experience a period where it's very mechanical and it's very dry. So how do we, or for that matter, any other aspects of devotion, so like reading, or so how do we keep the, how do we deal with those periods, and how do we deal with those aspects?
Yeah, suppose in certain aspects of bhakti, such as chanting, we go through very dry phases. At that time, what do we do? Yes, it's very difficult. But again, these 4 things I said, some association. If I associate with some devotee who really loves to chant, who is very committed, then by that association, okay, let me also do something. That association may stimulate that. Or if our mind is too much against it, then we put ourselves in a situation. Instead of chanting alone at my home, I come to that association or temple, association or somewhere people are chanting together. And then that stimulates me. So when the internal is not there, we have to get the external supports. And sometimes the external may not be available, then we have to get the internal. Maybe read something about the holy name, hear a class about the holy name. And that will give us a boost. And maybe remember the time when we took initiation, our photo of initiation. Remember that I made a commitment, I made a vow for this. That will help us to do that. So there are dry phases which we just have to tolerate through. That's why Krishna says, it tastes like poison in the beginning, but nectar in the end. So sometimes that poison may just be too much at particular times. So we have to find out some way to persevere through it. Generally, we tend to evaluate our chanting in a very unidimensional way. That means that, okay, I'm trying to chant, but I'm not feeling any connection with Krishna. I'm not able to focus on Krishna. What is the use of this chanting? I'm just wasting my time. It's not necessarily like that. Yes, it's best if we could connect with Krishna, focus our mind on Krishna, and then we are growing towards Krishna. But even when we are getting distracted, then we can see that is also an opportunity for us to understand ourselves better. That means, oh, my mind is wandering, this is happening, I'm getting so bored, I'm feeling so frustrated. We just get carried away by those emotions. But if we can think, okay, I'm trying to chant, and I'm not being able to chant because this is going here, going there. That means this is an opportunity. It's clearly being shown to me that my mind is different from me. Sometimes devotees ask, how do we realize that we are different from our mind? What are the best ways is by trying to do something different from what the mind wants to do. When we do that, and the mind just doesn't want to let us do it, then we clearly understand there's a mind within which is different from me. So, if we see chanting not simply as a means to connect with Krishna, but also as a means to understand ourselves and to understand our mind, then even when we are getting distracted, we are growing in self-understanding. Say, okay, my whole japa was distracted. Fine. But then after japa, maybe I can just spend 4 or 5 minutes and think, okay, what was I distracted towards? And then, actually our distractions will reveal to us our mind's primary attachments. Okay, I was worried about money. I was angry with this person. I was fearful about this, whatever. And then maybe we can use our intelligence to address those concerns. Okay, this person did like this, but I also wrong them sometimes. I forgive them sometimes, they forgive me. So basically, if the mind is getting distracted, in the process of chanting, to focus, we have to look at what distracts the mind from Krishna, what attracts the mind to Krishna, and what distances us from the mind. So during the process of chanting, I get distracted. So I just get disheartened that I'm getting distracted. But instead of that, I analyze. What is it that distracted me? And then I address that. Okay, I'm worried about my finances. But then use our intelligence to write down. Okay, I've done this, this, this. I've taken care of this. The next day, maybe previous night before sleeping, or next night after waking, before I chanting, I just quickly glance through that. When the mind starts going over there, no, I've done this. I don't need to worry about this. Then we will grow in self-discipline even if we are not focusing on Krishna. So like that, we can see chanting as also an aid for us for introspection, towards self-understanding. And what attracts us towards Krishna? So three things. What distracts us from Krishna? We evaluate that and process that. So within the scope of Krishna Bhakti, is there something which I like? I like a particular picture of Krishna. A particular pastime of Krishna, I love it. Then keep that pastime in front of you. And then try to think, I'm calling out to this person. This is the Lord I'm calling out to. That same Lord who called out when Gajendra, who came when Gajendra called, that is the same Lord I'm calling out to. So like that we try to create some connection. There is the point of concentration, there is the circle of concentration. The point of concentration is the sound of the holy name. Sometimes it's very difficult to focus on that point. But you can create a circle of concentration. That means, okay, connected with Krishna, what are the things that I feel attracted to? So it may be a picture of Vrindavan. It may be just the printout of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It may be some verse glorifying the holy name. So that way, we can create some force of connecting, some emotional connect with Krishna, even in the face of dryness. And lastly, something that distances us from the mind. So when we're getting very distracted, basically what is happening, when we get distracted, actually our lips are chanting, our mind is wandering, and the soul is thinking, which should I do? So now when I put it like this, hey, obviously I should not wander with my mind. I should focus on the chanting of the holy names. But at that time, the mind just carries us away. So if I can distance myself from the mind, if I decide, after every 4 rounds, I just pause, take a few deep breaths, and then reorient myself. Then I'm supposed to be chanting, what am I doing? Or after every few rounds, I decide I'll recite one verse about the holy name. I read some quote about the holy name. Then that brings us back to our purpose. Like I earlier talked about, see, there is the physical level, the mental level, and the spiritual level. So now, we want to go to the spiritual level of reality. We want to focus on Krishna. But at the mental level, the mind goes everywhere. So what we can do is, periodically, we get the mind from the mental to the physical level. Now just take a break and recite some verse. Take a break and take some deep breath. Take a break and maybe if I'm sitting and my mind is wandering, better stand up and walk. If I have to walk, then I have to look, where am I going? And that forces me to become a little more aware, not just get caught in the mind. So that way, if we create some periodic breaks where we distance ourselves from the mind, then even if our mind wanders, we will become aware of it and we'll get the impetus to bring it back. And most importantly, we have to know that Krishna is an understanding God. So that means that even if our mind is wandering, even if it is that we don't feel like chanting, Krishna knows that. It is not that when we don't feel like chanting at all, Krishna is going to demand absolute concentration from us. No, Krishna doesn't just see our feelings. He also sees our feelings about our feelings. That means, I just don't feel like chanting. Then I can have the attitude, Krishna, I want to chant, but I'm just not feeling like chanting. Please help me. So that I have the feeling, I don't feel any taste for chanting. But my feeling about my feeling is, Krishna, I don't want to feel like this. Please help me to feel devotional. Or my feeling can be, I don't feel like chanting. When will this chanting get over? I can do other things then. This chanting is such a big burden. Why do I have to do this? So that is an undevotional feeling. So basically, there is an undevotional feeling which has come within me. But I don't have to make that an undevotional attitude. So if we understand that, even if we have undevotional feelings or anti-devotional feelings also, if we try to be prayerful, sometimes actually that prayerfulness, that dependence which we are forced to adopt when our chanting is inattentive, that may lead to more spiritual advancement than attentive chanting in which we feel no need for Krishna. So it's not just attention. Attention is important, but along with attention, attitude is also important. Sometimes, I come in the association of devotees and I chant sitting erect, clear pronunciation. Not because I want to please Krishna, but I want to show everyone else, what a good chanter I am. So there may be clear concentration, there may be clear pronunciation, there may be erect posture, there may also be attention in one sense. But the attitude is not very devotional. So we don't have to equate good chanting simply with externals. That, I'm feeling good while chanting, I'm concentrating while chanting. No, the most important thing is attitude. So actually the times when our mind wanders too much, they are the times when we can feel greatly the need for Krishna and dependence on Krishna. And if that happens, then even through the phase of inattention, we can be making spiritual advancement. Because we are actually connecting with Krishna in realizing our need for Him. Okay? Thank you. Yes. Who has the mic? Okay. Yes. You can just repeat. You can speak, I'll repeat.
Hare Krishna, yeah. Prabhu, you mentioned about impulses that need to be controlled. These impulses are basically our conditioned response to any stimuli that we get. So unknowingly, if a stimulus comes in front of me, I act like that, which is an impulse, thoughtless action or something. So can you tell me some ways, or can you tell us some ways how we can control those impulses when that stimuli is coming or comes?
Okay, so when some stimulus comes, how do we control it? The most important thing is preparation. If I'm going on a road and first time I go, I find there's a pothole over there, I just have a jolt. But next time when I go, I know there's a pothole, I'll avoid it or I'll go slowly. So like that, if we know in which situations the impulses are triggered, we can prepare in advance. This is a situation when I get angry. So I prepare for it. And along with that, we can try to find out healthier ways to deal with it. When the impulse comes, its key is, it just wants us to act right now. But if you could create some kind of pause button for ourselves. Not yes, not no, but pause. Okay, this person did like this. I will give them a piece of my mind now. Now, actually, at that time, if we explore, things will just become worse. But we can't even suppress our concerns, our grievances. We have to deal with them, but not now. So we may decide, when I get that impulse, I'll make a plan that, I will chant Hare Krishna a few times before I'll take a few deep breaths. I'll recite some verses. So we have to find out some pause button that works for us. Maybe having some wisdom quotes about, why I should not get angry. Whatever it is, we have to find the pause button that works for us and keep that ready with us. Then that way, we can restrain the impulses. Okay? Thank you. Yes, Prabhu.
Again, these comments are from internet users. I have 5 of them. And 2 of them are related to the morning session. Is that okay to ask now?
Okay. Can you take something related to this session first?
Okay.
Then go back. You can take definitely.
Okay. So let's start with this session. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my name is Balaji. Prabhuji, my mind thinks about what I do throughout the day while I am chanting. It seems like the momentum of the day interferes with my chanting. If I am involved in devotional activities, my mind thinks about the same while chanting. But if my day is filled with materialistic activities, the same interferes with my chanting. How can I get into the spiritual mood
Yeah.
How can I get into the spiritual mode quickly when I want to chant without these disturbances? Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
So whatever we think about or do throughout the day, that's what the mind tends to think even while chanting. So how can we get into a devotional mood? That's why it's best to do chanting before we get into the day. So if you do it in the morning, it's like, say if we are going to travel to some place. In the morning there's not much traffic. You can go fast. The daytime, the same travel should take, say 1 hour in the morning may take 2 hours in the day. So like that, in the early morning hours, in our consciousness, the traffic is clear. So our consciousness can move rapidly towards Krishna. But in the daytime, there's a lot of traffic. So then the time required becomes more, the energy becomes more, and we don't feel that connection. So if somehow it's difficult for us to chant in the mornings, then it is for us to find out some activity which will create a devotional frame of mind. Say it might just be, if we like a particular bhajan, we don't want to get into much time, but say Bhaja Hure Mana Shinanda Nandan or some bhajan, just sing it for 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes, just hear a recording of that bhajan from someone. That may create some devotional frame of mind. Or we look at the favorite picture of our deities, or some picture which is favorite for us of some deities, and pray to them a little bit. So among the various devotional activities that we have to find out which stimulate us devotionally the most. Rupa Goswami in Ujjwal Nilamani calls this the Uddipan. Uddipan is spiritual stimulus. Just as all of us, based on our individual nature, may have particular sense objects that stimulate us, and they don't stimulate others. Similarly, within the process of bhakti, we may have certain spiritual objects that stimulate us. It may be deities, it may be kirtan, it may be bhajan. So we do that even briefly. That helps us to get into a more devotional frame of mind. And that way, so that way we can break some incense or something has come in. No? So that way, so we can break the non-devotional momentum through some activity in which the devotional stimulus becomes easily apparent for us.
So, shall I ask the next 2 questions? These are also regarding the evening session only, afternoon session only. So, next one, this is from Sunita Datta. How does someone who has devotional mind, but they are day to day associated with someone who has desires that leads away from Krishna, how to deal with that? The association is someone who cannot cut ties with due to some factor.
So if somebody is devoted, but they have to associate with somebody who is not devoted. How to work with them? Sometimes we serve with some people. Sometimes we basically serve Krishna at all times, but we serve Krishna with some people. Sometimes we serve Krishna through some people, and sometimes we serve Krishna in spite of some people. And sometimes the same person may go through this. Sorry. Sometimes the same person may, for us, based on our mood and their mood, go through different phases. So serve with some person means they also serving Krishna, we are serving Krishna, we serve together. We serve through some people. That means they are superior to us. By serving them, our service goes to Krishna. Sometimes you have to serve in spite of some people. That means those people, some people help us in our service to Krishna. By inspiring us to serve Krishna, by encouraging us to serve Krishna, they help us. But some people help us to grow towards Krishna by forcing us to learn tolerance. By forcing us to learn humility. So basically, unless that person is stopping us in our service to Krishna, then we may have to take some assertive steps for creating some distance. But otherwise, we see that by our past karma, we encounter different kinds of people in our life. And dealing with them properly in a mood of service to Krishna is also a way we grow closer to Krishna. So sometimes in an association where everybody is nice, to be nice is not that difficult. When people are not nice, that is the time when we have to exercise our Krishna consciousness to manifest devotional qualities. So instead of seeing that person as an obstacle in our service to Krishna, if we have just a very limited conception of service to Krishna. No, if I go to the temple, that's service to Krishna. Yes, that is service to Krishna, definitely. But even if at my home, at my office, how I conduct myself, that is also service to Krishna. And so, one of the differences between Kanishta Adhikari and Madhyama Adhikari, Kanishta Adhikari sees Krishna only in the temple. Madhyama Adhikari sees that how I deal with different people also affects my service to Krishna. So, by trying to see that we are meant to serve Krishna, but we can serve in different ways. So, as long as we make our boundaries clear, and this my bhakti is what I'm going to practice. Other things, if some adjustment has to be done, that's okay. Sometimes, through that adjustment, we may help that person to come closer to Krishna. And that is also one way we ourselves will please Krishna and go closer to Krishna. So, we don't have to necessarily see a person who is not a devotee as automatically opposed to our devotion. You can see, yes, they may not be inclined right now, but unless they are aggressively opposed to my devotion, I don't have to make that into a bigger issue than what it needs to be. Let me practice my bhakti as much as I can in that situation. And if I am trying to do my best, then Krishna will guide me to a more favorable situation in the future. And sometimes, when our association is unfavorable, if at that time we become more eager for Krishna, then by that eagerness, actually again, we may please Krishna. Somebody who all family members are devotees and they are practicing bhakti. It's good, everybody is a devotee. But if all family members are not devotees, and that time I am trying to practice bhakti, then the eagerness for Krishna, that time, if I could go to a temple, I could go this, I could do that. That eagerness can also lead to spiritual advancement. even if I'm not able to physically go there. So if we don't have a limited conception of bhakti, but we see bhakti more as a development of an attitude of service to Krishna in various situations, then even people who are not devotionally inclined, we can find appropriately how to deal with them and see our interactions with them also as a way to move closer to Krishna. Yes. Okay. Any other questions here? We'll come back if you don't mind. Yeah. Okay. I'll take it. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Chaitanya, where is the mic?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much. It's a very lofty topic, and thank you for presenting all the wonderful insights. So my question is, all these instincts that we have, they are reflective of our nature in some sense, right? Whether it be acquired nature or innate nature, that is perhaps not known. So in this context, my question is, are we trying to revive our Krishna conscious nature or form our Krishna conscious nature?
Okay. So if we have certain instincts right now, are they a part of our body mind, their acquired nature? Or if say I have attraction for music, then is it coming from my body and mind, or is it coming from the soul which has attracted to Krishna by singing? So are we trying to construct our spiritual nature, or are we trying to revive it? So in general, like I said earlier, where something comes from is not as easy to know as where something is taking us. So if I have an inclination to study Shastra, now is that inclination coming from my conditioned body and mind which just likes to read books, and Shastra happens to be a book which is nice, so I'm reading it? Or is it my soul is attracted towards Krishna, and Shastra is a book about Krishna, that's why I'm attracted towards Krishna? It could be both. Generally, it's a progression. Usually, it's our conditioned nature which is what we use in Krishna's service. A Brahmana likes to read. Give them books about scripture, philosophy, they'll read that also. But gradually, as somebody keeps serving Krishna according to their nature, then they start realizing, this book is intellectually stimulating, it is about Krishna. This book is also intellectually stimulating, it is not about Krishna. But in this book, I get some taste, which I don't get over here. Although both are equally intellectually stimulating, but here I experience something which I don't experience over there. And then gradually, the Krishna element starts becoming prominent. Some people may just like to sing. And they come to a temple, they will sing Krishna bhajans. They go to a party, they will sing Bollywood songs. For them, it's singing that is important. What they are singing doesn't matter to them. But if they come in the association of devotees and they sing about Krishna, after a period they will recognize, hey, in this singing about Krishna, there's something special. And when they see that, then gradually the focus will be not just on the activity that I do according to my nature, but the purpose for which I am doing that activity. And thus, our nature will be the channel by which we move towards Krishna. Earlier, basically, we want to just stay at the level of my nature. I want to sing, whether it is mundane songs or devotional songs. But when I sing devotional songs regularly, then I start developing a taste for Krishna. And then gradually, I become situated more and more in Krishna. And then the attraction to Krishna becomes not just because of my psychophysical nature, but because of the soul's nature to serve Krishna. So it's both a channelization of what we have right now, as well as an activation of what is the soul's eternal constitutional position to love and serve Krishna. So it's very difficult at our stage to know what is what. The soul and its innate nature is practically unknowable for us. So we don't worry too much about whether it's coming from the soul or it's coming from the body mind. We focus on where it is taking us. And eventually, the soul's nature of loving Krishna will be activated. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Mataji. We'll come to you after that.
How do we understand the effect of the three modes, Prabhuji? Like, just now, practically, we understand that this is the mind, this is the way I have to use my intelligence, and these are the senses, like Raseshwari is mentioning in the morning about the 5 horses and the reins. We see all that in Bhagavad Gita. And we also see this picture of, the puppet, the 3 modes of material nature. How do we put this horse analogy with the pulling of the rein?
Okay, yeah. So, how do we correlate the 3 modes with the analysis of how the mind works? Basically, the mind getting pulled the mind getting pulled in particular directions is because of the 3 modes of material nature. Now, the modes don't act on the soul. The modes primarily act on the subtle body. And that's how they pull. So, it is the focus of what it is that we are trying to understand. Now, if we want to understand the interaction with the mind, intelligence and soul, then we use the framework that we use today. I talked about how as a main screen on which there are different links, and then which we are meant to choose, whether I choose this link or I keep on the main page what I want to read. Now, which links pop up on that screen, which links become more prominent, that is what is determined by the mind. So, say I am studying Shastra, and if at that time the mode of passion starts becoming prominent, then my whole study of Shastra will be for the purpose, next time when I meet someone, what can I quote by which I can impress someone? I'm studying Shastra, but my motive is not really to connect with Krishna. It is not only to deepen my understanding. It is to just impress others. So then even when I'm reading, this point. Sometimes some people hear class also. They sit in the class primarily to be entertained. Sometimes we unconsciously use the laughter test to judge how good a class is. That means how many jokes were there in the class? A lot of jokes, a very good class. Now, it's good to have jokes, but we are not here to primarily be entertained. We want to be educated, we want to be uplifted, we want to be purified by figuring about Krishna. So in the mode of passion, we may study scripture itself, but in the study of scripture, what we focus on, that will be determined by the modes. Or while studying scripture also we get distracted. If we are in the mode of ignorance, we'll feel, so boring, I just want to go to sleep now. If the contamination of the mode of passion, I have to do this. How long can I study? Maybe later I'll study this. So if I'm reading one page, the kind of links that pop up and that allure me, they will be shaped by the modes. If I'm in the mode of passion, and then the mode of ignorance becomes prominent, then I'm running around doing this, I'm doing that. So boring, this is so tiresome, I don't want to do it now. That thought comes in. And if you give in to that thought, then the mode of ignorance will take control of us. So, while we are going through our normal course of life, the mind gives us various distracting options. So, which options the mind distracts us with, that is determined by the modes, which are currently influencing us at that time. Okay? Thank you. Yes, bro.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, it is said that eventually one should write to the mode of goodness. Sometimes, in the devotional service, depending on one's aptitude or skill set, not everyone may be very good in Shastra or giving lectures or, in that, but you may be able to better serve doing some other service which may be more in mode of passion, like, running the show or managing, which may certainly, seem to be more quote unquote passionate. But in spite of your, second initiation or something, you feel that's where you can contribute the most. Now, is mind tricking you? Because eventually everyone is getting old. Unless you are in mode of goodness, you can't even, think of proceeding for devotional service, which is even beyond that. So what should be the actual status and how we should be thinking?
So if because of our modes, say if the mode of passion makes us feel that we want to like run around and make run the show and do services like management and coordination rather than study of Shastra, then are we still in the mode of passion, and how can we advance? How can we actually come to transcendence? They're two different things. Okay.
Sorry, can I add? I mean, not to say that, the basics has to be done. Like, it's not that we neglect the other completely. But, the primary service, the question is more for primary service. That is not that, oh no, Shastra, totally zero. No, that has to be done.
Yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying. So, if we are doing our basic sadhana, but we feel inclined more towards services involving practical action rather than study of scripture, does that mean we are still in the mode of passion? There's a difference between intention and execution. When we become devotees or when we become purified, it is our intention that becomes transcendental. Our intention becomes more and more to please Krishna. But the execution of that intention will always be according to the body that we have. That's why I said the Pandavas are pure devotees, but still they were not attracted to scriptures. When Drupada wanted to test them, they were attracted to weapons. But because their nature was Kshatriya and they were serving Krishna through the Kshatriya nature. So it's not necessary that a person who is of, say, a Vaishya nature, who has a very good capacity to deal with money, earn money, give money in charity, arrange for fundraising, it's not necessary that person, by the practice of bhakti, will develop great love for Shastra. But even that Vaishya activity will be done with more of a pure intention. That means one will do business, but instead of doing it, I have to get profit at all costs. So even the Vaishya activity is in the mode of passion, we could say roughly. But it can be done in the mode of ignorance where, the way I run my business, it causes death and destruction to others. Or I can do it in passion. I want the best, and even if others get damaged, I don't care about that. It can be done in goodness, it can be done in transcendence. Certain activities do need certain frames of mind. So if somebody has to do business, they have to be having that, to some extent, money consciousness. Not money consciousness, the obsession with money, but they have to be aware of that. So that's not necessarily a deficiency in our devotion. It's more of how much is our intent to serve Krishna. That intent is to serve Krishna. So even when, say, I'm earning money, if I'm thinking that, okay, by this I'll buy a big house and then everybody will show how wealthy I am. Or I'm thinking, if I earn this money, I can give more in charity and I can use it for Krishna, and then we can have a beautiful temple for Krishna. Or, I'm doing this coordinating this program. I'm going to make sure that everybody gets a positive impression about Krishna Bhakti. So I will try to make sure everything is organized properly. So it's more our consciousness that and the intention with which we are doing that matters. So we don't have to worry too much if our nature is what is engaging us in a particular way. But it is true that we also, as we grow older, we may not be able to physically run around and do other services. So at that time, we will have to focus on hearing, chanting, remembering. So we can try to also do those devotional services, form the devotional service more. But we have to see that more as a progression than as a rejection or as a disqualification. That means, okay, I'm doing the service over here and I'm grateful that I can do the service over here. If I can do this also, that's good. But if I can't, I'll continue this. And it's not that I have to give up this to do that. So we continue what we are doing and we see if we can do it more in a sattvic way or can also do sattvic activities more. Thank you. So maybe a couple of more questions. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thanks for coming down to Bay Area and thanks for the wonderful classes. And you're also helping me in my Bhakti Shastri, so that's something great. Thanks a lot. I did have a very basic question, if you could please help answer that. The question is that, is it not true that the Mahamantra, the holy name, is self-fulfilling? And if that is true, then why would we ever have to think about various aspects like intentions and what is my selection of people and things like that? If it is self-fulfilling, and if I'm doing 16 rounds and the 4 regulative principles, which is the only material activities that I have to focus on not doing, then after that everything else should happen on its own. I mean, like the example that you gave, right? I mean, we could talk about Dukta Ragya and things like that, but I don't think even that one should be done intentionally, because as Krishna says, we are a body and it's like a machine that goes on. So even in Krishna's service, that should happen on its own. The only difference is whether we're doing on a material track or spiritual track, and holy name should be able to carry us forward. We should have to do anything intentionally. Thank you.
So if the holy name is self-fulfilling, then do we have to worry about things like intention? Shouldn't all this just happen automatically? Bhakti is a process of developing a relationship with Krishna. And developing that relationship means that we express our love for Krishna with all that we have. So we express our love for Krishna by chanting the holy names, and we express our love for Krishna by other talents that He has given us. If He has given us an introspective mind, if He has given us analytical skills, we use them in Krishna's service. If He has given us musical ability, we use them in Krishna's service. The Prabhupada himself told that chanting 16 rounds is what is important. But then he wrote so many books. Now why did He encourage devotees to go out and distribute books? Now, He could have just said, just chant Hare Krishna. So He encouraged devotees to distribute books. He encouraged Athyatras. So bhakti is not meant to be restrictive. Bhakti is about a connection with Krishna. And different people have different natures. So if we feel inspired to chant, if I can chant 64 rounds or I can chant 16 rounds, I can do it attentively. And that is leading to transformation. If I have anger and my anger is going away by chanting, that's wonderful. If that is not happening, now I may say it has to happen. Well, but I've been chanting for so many years, it's not happening. Then what do I do? It's not necessary that means that chanting is not working, or nor does it necessarily mean that I'm not chanting properly. It may be that I'm not chanting properly, but this is what I can do right now. So we have to see, with the existing resources that I have, how can I best serve Krishna? So if I have a tendency to be pessimistic, and that's my habitual tendency. See, what happens is, the mind is very deceptive. And sometimes, it may just take certain aspects of the philosophy. So I have a pessimistic mind from my past conditionings, and then I hear about the philosophy of this world is dukkha leva shashvatam. And then I start justifying my pessimism based on the philosophy. The philosophy is not pessimistic. If Srila Prabhupada had been pessimistic, how could he at the age of 70 have gone all the way abroad? So the way the mind works is that sometimes we may be doing devotional activities, but we may be just projecting our material conditioning over there. So sometimes we have to catch the mind. So it's rather than stereotyping devotion that this is chanting 16 rounds should work. Yes, chanting 16 rounds is important. And if it works, wonderful. But if it doesn't work, that does not mean that we are disqualified as devotees. We can find out, how can I serve Krishna? And there are not just those who have become devotees. When we have analytical, introspective, rational kind of presentation of bhakti, There are many people of that nature who will be attracted to Krishna. If we tell them just chant Hare Krishna, they may not be attracted to Krishna. So we have to see that bhakti is like, it's not just one circle where inside are devotees, outside are non-devotees. Bhakti is like a series of concentric circles of expanding radii. And different devotees can be situated in these different circles. They're all going towards Krishna. So some devotees may connect with Krishna primarily through chanting. Some may connect primarily through kirtans. Some may connect primarily through deity worship. Some may connect primarily through scriptural study and analysis and studying and teaching. Some may connect through book distribution. And we see that whatever service I have to do to Krishna, how can I do it the best? How can I do it the best? So if that improvement can happen by chanting, well and good. If that improvement can happen by some other feature, some other kind of thought exercises or practical skill development, no, we are doing it for the service of Krishna. When Srila Prabhupada he was working with his editors. Jayadvaita Maharaj was one of his primary editors. So he did some editing of his books, and then Prabhupada told him, do what you are doing and train others. Now editing is a grammatical skill. Now if I don't know English grammar, is it by chanting Hare Krishna I learn English grammar? Well, I may, but what if I don't? We cannot consider that the spiritual is the replacement for the material. If say I got a fracture of my hand, now chanting Hare Krishna can help me transcend the pain. I won't be so obsessed. I can absorb my consciousness in Krishna and I'll feel less pain. But chanting Hare Krishna is not going to heal the fracture. I have to go to I'm going towards what you're saying, that I'll have to go to a doctor and get it treated. So with respect to physical, I can easily understand. Now, if there's physical structural damage, like I talked about grammatical, linguistic skills, I understand that this is a part of something material and bhakti is spiritual. So for improving the material, I need to function at the material level. Now, while functioning at the material level also, bhakti may help me. I may have to go to a doctor and somehow I may find a very good doctor and the doctor treats me very well. Or I want to learn English and I get associate with a devotee teacher and they teach me English and grammar. That's fine. But we understand for these material things, I need to have some material skill development. Now when it comes to the mind is in between the body and the soul. So the mind is ultimately purified by the holy name. Intermediately or immediately, whether it will be pacified or not, that will vary from person to person. And if in the immediate or the intermediate stages, somebody needs something as a help, so that their mind becomes more amenable to the process of bhakti, then we don't have to see the spiritual and the mental as competitive. Bhakti is the ultimate solution. We can't claim that bhakti is always the immediate solution also. The immediate solution means, say, if I am hungry, or let's take a more extreme example. If I wake up early morning and chant 64 rounds attentively, will that 64 rounds of chanting remove the bad breath of my mouth if I have not brushed my teeth? Even if it is pure chanting, to get pure breath, I have to brush my teeth. Isn't it? So, the point which I am making is that there is the physical, the mental and the spiritual. And bhakti works at the spiritual level. Now, bhakti can work at the physical level also sometimes. Krishna can do something miraculous. Bhakti can work at the mental level also. But we don't demand from Krishna that it has to work at this level. And we don't demand from the sadhaka that you cannot do anything else to be able to work at this levels. No, Prabhupada himself preferred Ayurveda for treating his body. He said it's from the Vedic body of knowledge. But Prabhupada was not insistent on that. He said the body is a tool. If allopathy works, use allopathy. You make sure the body is functional and work towards Krishna. So same way, what should not happen is, through all this introspection and analysis, we start thinking this is the ultimate solution. And we don't need chanting. We don't need Krishna Bhakti. If we start thinking of this as the ultimate solution, then it's a serious problem. But if we see that that is the ultimate solution, and for that I can be helped by these things. With Arjuna, after hearing the Bhagavad Gita, fought the Kurukshetra war. Now, did Arjuna win the Kurukshetra war by the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita or by the knowledge of archery that he had learned throughout his life?
So my take was that he actually didn't even fight. All the arrows were the Krishna Sudarshan Chakra was actually killing everyone. That's what Babrik said when he was watching the entire thing. So that was Bhakti one, not his material capability. Right? So material is a subset.
It was not, you cannot say that it was not his material capability. It was his material capability used in Krishna's service. Krishna was the ultimate doer. Krishna was not the immediate doer. Now, Prabhupada told us that, my books are written by Krishna. But then Prabhupada did not put Krishna as the author of the books. Isn't it? So,
Prabhupada did, right? Because he said as it is. So when says
what does as it is mean?
It goes to the root, and root is Krishna. So that
but Krishna is the ultimate cause. Krishna, Prabhupada is the instrument. Otherwise, we would have a Mayavad of a different kind. That through Prabhupada's books, we know only Krishna and we know nothing about Prabhupada. No, Prabhupada is a pure devotee. The pure devotee is also a person. Prabhupada's personality comes out through his books. If we say it is only Krishna writing through his books, then that means Prabhupada is not there in his books also. That is like we reduce Prabhupada to a zero and only Krishna is there. That's Mayavad.
But is it not true, Prabhu, that whatever we know about Prabhupada is because of his connection to Krishna? Is there any part of Prabhupada that's not connected to Krishna that is not worth knowing?
Is there any part of Prabhupada that is not connected to Krishna? The point here is Prabhupada's intent was always to serve Krishna. That in that sense, his whole life is connected with Krishna. But is it that, say, now Prabhupada loved kachoris? Now to be a follower of Prabhupada, is it that all of us have to love kachoris? Not necessarily. Is that Prabhupada had a particular way of pronouncing English? Is it that all of us, in order to be faithful followers of Prabhupada, have to pronounce English in that way? Prabhupada pronounced Sanskrit verses in a Bengali way. Now once one Hindu scholar asked him, Swamiji, you pronounce Sanskrit verses in a very Bengali way. Prabhupada said, what can I do? I am a Bengali. What do you expect from me, Prabhupada said. So, in intent, Prabhupada was purely devoted to Krishna.
True.
At the same time, Prabhupada was also an individual person in his own right. And similarly, of course, Prabhupada was purely focused on Krishna. We are not so purely focused on Krishna. But still, bhakti is not about denying our individuality. It is about using our individuality fully for the service of Krishna. And for that purpose, different people, because they are individuals, they will use their individuality in different ways to serve Krishna. Okay?
Yeah, Prabhuji, I understood this part of using our individuality. My only question was, do we have to explicitly try to introduce our individuality to serve Krishna, or will it implicitly happen because we are following the basic tenets of bhakti? That's what I was getting at. In other words, I should have to worry about what my intentions are. If my intention is, and my innate capability is to serve Krishna through deity service, that should automatically come out, and Krishna will give hints, and we should be able to perceive them. That's what I was getting at.
So will our individuality come automatically, or do we have to consciously do that?
And I think you did point out very well, I think earlier when you said that it should not become overwhelming. We should understand that this is an intermediate step. So I think you very well pointed that out. And my fear is that if we too much worry about these individuality aspects like intentions, what's my selection, we should actually rely and trust on Krishna. And let's say if there is a person...
This is a good question. And if we rely on this kind of analysis and introspection, is it that we are not having trust in Krishna? It could be. But it can also be that we see even the capacity for introspection as a gift from Krishna. That this is, somebody has musical ability. Now they can use that musical ability to go closer to Krishna, or they can use that musical ability to become proud and go away from Krishna. So that musical ability is a gift from Krishna. But whether it will take us to Krishna or not, that's up to them. So sometimes what may happen is that we may use God to stay away from God. that means, I have some relation issues with someone, and I am burning in anger at someone, and I have to do something to practically resolve it. Maybe talk with them, talk with some senior devotee, they talk with them, and we try to resolve that issue. But instead of that, I just decided, I'll forget everything and chant 64 rounds, chant 128 rounds. Now, if that is helping me, that is good. But if I'm chanting that as a means of escaping from that situation, then that may not be very helpful for my spiritual growth. Chanting is always helpful. But how much is my consciousness connecting with Krishna through that? That is important. So there are many situations where Prabhupada did not encourage devotees to just give up their services and do extra chanting. He said, continue your service. So I'm saying that our intention should become purified automatically. But if it is not happening, we have to be introspective enough to check what is going on. And if it is naturally happening, it's wonderful. For those who can chant Hare Krishna and be happy, it's wonderful. But there's a chanting Hare Krishna and they're not happy. What do you do? Now, there are issues of the mind, and they have to be dealt with.
So you very rightly pointed out, Prabhu. Yes, you're right. I mean, if you have to deal with...
So we can't live in denial.
No, you're right. But I was thinking, we should live in denial. At least the theory should say that, saying that if you cannot get excitement or whatever out of 64 rounds, then you do 128. And if that means you cannot eat food, then you continue doing it till you get it. In brief, our intention should be on perseverance, on patience, not trying to resolve the intermediate. And if the intermediate has to happen, let Krishna manifest. But the point is, do everything for Krishna. If I'm trying to get God to move away from God, then if it's by definition self-fulfilling, that's what the definition of the word means, then it should resolve on its own. Otherwise, it's not wholesome, it's not purnam. If it is a little bit, there's something lacking in it, if it requires some effort. And I understand what you're getting at, but I was hoping that this being the golden age of Kali Yuga, this being the highest possible benediction coming from Krishna himself, this is something that's not even available in Satya Yuga, should be able to solve things on its own. And Prabhupada ji said that in 40 years people do get to perfection, and people who caught on it early should be able to get that. So that I was getting at. Hopefully, we should have to use our best, because when you do that, one of other Prabhupada's statement is, we use our mind, and mind is material, and when you do something material, that can lead to speculations. So it could also lead astray. That said, I do agree with what you said, so I think we can probably leave it at that. Thanks a lot. So, sorry if I kept going, and please pardon my offenses.
Hare Krishna. So shall we stop here? Is there any other question? Okay, one last question. You had a couple of questions here, no? Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for another excellent class. My question is, so we are doing some introspection to take a stock of our mind and then connect. But my question is, there is also a saying called analysis in paralysis.
Okay, you mentioned that. I got that.
Yeah.
So can we have paralysis by analysis? Yes, it's definitely possible. See, the mode of goodness and the mode of ignorance look very similar. So in both there is no action, but in mode of goodness the mind is in control and is being directed constructively. In the mode of ignorance, the mind is in control and is directing destructively. So Prabhupada did not translate bhakti simply as devotion, he translated as devotional service. That's why we have to do actions practically. So I would say that we can't live too much in our head. We have to practically serve Krishna. And to the extent we practically serve Krishna, to that extent we stay on the spiritual path. And how much analysis we do, that will depend on individual needs. If you see in the tradition, there was the oral tradition and there was the written tradition. The written tradition was primarily by scholars for scholars. That means, say, Baldev Vidyabhushan would write books, Vishnu Chakravarti would write books. They're written primarily by scholars for other scholarly devotees. For most common people, they learned about scripture, they learned about bhakti wisdom primarily by hearing. They were local sadhus, and the oral tradition was the primary way that they learned. So generally people are not very intellectual. And the oral tradition is where they learn through. And in that there is some level of analysis. And beyond that, if you go into Jiva Goswami Sat Sandarbhas, if you go into Baldev Vidyabhushan's Govinda Bhashya, there is extraordinary levels of analysis there. Very intricate. But that is required for some people. It's not that everybody in the past was reading Govinda Bhashya. It's a very, very technical book. But for those who need it, those who are inclined to study Vedanta Sutra, they want to know how does Vedanta Sutra lead to bhakti. Then we have those resources available. So we have to see whether our analysis is helping us to move closer towards Krishna, or whether it is just exhausting us or distracting us. So for those who can use analysis for Krishna's service, they can not only become attracted to Krishna towards that analysis, or become more committed to practicing the bhakti by which they will become attracted to Krishna, but they can also attract other analytical people towards Krishna. It's just like in kirtans. Now some people, they're so good at kirtans that they sing the kirtan in such a tune that kirtan is a performance, not a participation. You just can't follow that tune, what is going on. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, it's marvelous, but it is not something which everybody can learn. And if everybody thinks, hey, to do kirtan means I have to sing in this tune, I can't do that. But there are people who are musically inclined, they will just enjoy that so much. And that's the way we use our creativity in Krishna's service. Now, there is one of the characteristics of the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, as explained, as revealed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is that it is very kavyatmak, artistic poetry. Writing that has been a very prominent characteristic of the Gaudiya Vaishnava literature. So, there's Rupa Goswami has written something called Chitra Kavitavani. Chitra Kavitavani is, it's visually graphic poetry. So for example, he has written several verses. There is a verse about Govardhan Leela. And it just uses 2 letters, 2 syllables. The verse is Dhare Dhara Dhar Dharam Dhara Dhar Dhurarudi Dhira Dhira Radha Dhirodham Radha Dhuram Dharam. Now this is just the and ra, 2 sounds. That's all. There is nothing else. And to construct that, I have studied, there's nothing like that in English at all. You construct a whole verse using just 2 words. And in fact, there is one verse, which is whole verse is only 1 syllable, no. It is described, this is a prayer which is offered by Brahmaji to Krishna after he has realized that I tried to test Krishna and Krishna exposed me. So that verse is Ni nun na no nanam nunam na nun no na na no na nu na na no no na no na na no no nam nunan na 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 no na nu. So now, for Rupa Goswami, it may well have taken hours and hours, It's like if you look at this verse and look at the Sanskrit dictionary, it's like, okay, how does this word mean this? It's like you have to go into 2nd level, 3rd level, 4th level Sanskrit dictionary to find out. It's a very esoteric meaning of the word. So what is he doing? He is using that poetic creativity in Krishna's service. Now for some people, these verses are just tongue twisters. What do you do with this? And I was telling one devotee couple's daughter this verse. She was enjoying it very much. And the mother and father was also there. They also were reciting the verse together. And the Mataji told Prabhuji, in the future when I get angry with you and I don't want to talk with you, I'll recite this verse. So there is the capacity to use whatever we have in Krishna's service. So that was the time when if you see, this sort of kavyatmak Sanskrit was very prominent. The Chitra Kavitavani was done by various different people. In fact, there is one poet, he's written a full book. If you read it from front to back, it is Ramayana. If you read it from back to front, it is Mahabharata. Now, in English, that is called palindrome. Palindrome means, you read the word opposite, then it comes out the same. But nobody has written a full book in the form of palindrome. So how do you do that? So now, the point is that if the contemporary ethos, when the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition was, that you exhibit your devotion, you exhibit your intelligence by being linguistically creative. Then our Acharyas showed that they could be creative like that and glorify Krishna. So bhakti always has to be presented in the language, in the value system, in the ethos of the contemporary culture. Only then it will be attracted to that contemporary culture. So our Acharyas are expert in doing that. And is that analysis by paralysis? Yeah, when today that's not what the frame of reference is, we may feel, oh, I don't need this, and that's true. But if today the frame of reference is different, then whatever is the frame of reference, we have to use that. So yes, today our minds, there are many devotees who journal, and they use journaling to grow, to analyze, to deprocess the issues of their mind. So I asked one senior Srila Prabhupada disciple, I said, is there any example of our Acharyas doing any journaling? So he was telling me that, the characteristic of Kali Yuga is Upadrutaha. He is himself a Srila Prabhupada disciple, very scholarly, and he journals every day. So he told me that the mind is very disturbed. He says, when our Acharyas lived at that time, the world was not that complicated. The society was not that complicated, and the minds were not that disturbed. So if by journaling somebody is helped to focus the mind on Krishna and to become better devotees of Krishna, then they can do that. Now somebody else, they don't need it. What do you sit in hours and write a journal? They don't need it, they don't need it. If you need it, you use it. We have to individually see whether that activity is taking us closer to Krishna. So he told me that he has written his will, that when he dies, along with him, all his journals should be burnt. I said, why is that? I asked him. He said, there's a lot of anger in those journals. So I processed my anger through those journals. So now, is it that advanced devotee cannot have anger? Well, anger comes, but they don't express their anger. They don't let the anger get carried away. They find a way to deal with that. So we have to see that if we are doing something, is it helping us move towards Krishna? Srila Prabhupada writes in the introduction of Nectar of Instruction towards the end, he says, once we come to the mode of goodness, how to advance further will be revealed from within. So if we have been practicing bhakti steadily, then we will ourselves understand, is doing this helping me grow in my bhakti? Or is this something I'm being self-indulgent, just wasting my time doing this? So that way we can observe, we can evaluate, we can consult other devotees, and then see whether this is helping us grow in our devotion. If it is, we adopt it. If it doesn't, then we can stop it. Okay? So, if there are any other questions, we can discuss maybe in tomorrow's session. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Hidai Gaur Premanande.
His Grace Caitanya Caran Prabhu ki.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
This clap is our appreciation. Let's express loudly clapping.
Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.